Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dialectic Space podcast. It's with me, Ibrahim Asanko, based here in Seattle, Washington. And my guest today, obviously, is somebody all of you know. His name is not uncommon at all. His voice is perhaps one of the loudest in our Gambian social media, political, and social commentary. He is an individual here based off in Atlanta, United States, and his name is Mr. Musa Jeng. Musa Jeng is very prominent in terms of social and political commentary in the Gambia, and he describes himself as a community activist. And so much so, I think it would be fair to say now some people, in fact, categorize him as a politician just
I know.
because of so much of his commentary and voice has been in that respect. But that is not only definitive of who this guy really is. And I always say that I think it's important for us to narrate the stories of individuals who are very prominent in terms of holding opinions in our spaces, but also to know who they are, what informs some of those decisions, what informs some of those commentaries. And it's the thing that I try to do here on this platform. So part of what Musa really does is really invaluable contributions to the diaspora of the Gambians, especially those in the United States. And I think that do not get to be spoken about a lot enough. And I really want to highlight that, especially knowing fully well that I'm here in the United States. I've been following your life and journey for many, many years.
Right.
And I remember when I reached out to Saryang, I said, look, I'm interested in hearing all of Gambian stories, but I'm particularly interested in understanding our political and social history. And
Right.
so for me, it is a medium to sit down to learn, to hear about your story, to hear about things that inform some of the commentaries and writings that you've done. But most importantly, to try to dig back all the way to Gambia L,
Right.
to see what is left of it and to see that you've been really at this for what seems to be more than 2 decades
Right.
or
Right.
more is really impressive. So I'm really happy to have you on this platform today. And thank you for doing this with me. Welcome to the Dialect Space podcast, Mr. Jeng.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ibrahim. I'm honored. I'm honored. When I got your invitation, I was like, wow, this is one interview that I have to do. I mean, I like to be on the other side, inviting people and asking the questions. So,
Mhm.
but like I told you, in that I'm even one of your fans.
Thank you,
Seriously,
thank you, thank you, thank you, Musa.
I like the way you carry yourself. I mean, you definitely know what you're doing. And you're not a bomb thrower. And I really like that about you and your
Thank you,
approach. So watching your program, it's something that I do a lot. Definitely.
thank you, thank you
Again,
so much. Thank you.
I'm definitely honored to be here tonight. And yeah, let's get it going.
Let's dive into it. Musa, thank you
Yeah.
very much. I'm equally very honored. And let me also add by saying that, this a platform like mine is only possible because of what you guys have started. Some of you may know already who are my followers or that follow both of Musa's show, for the people by the people show, and also the Dialect Space podcast. Saryang Marong is my older brother. He's my cousin brother.
He did tell me
And yes, and so I'm a big follower of what you guys do on your platform, and
that.
I think I want to really encourage all of you to keep having those really wonderful conversations, because the young ones, especially myself, although I don't consider myself so young anymore, there is need for us to understand what is going on in the Gambia from a historical position, especially for those individuals who are older than us. And so to understand what is happening today is important to hear from those who are involved in that process. And yours is one that has been very prominent. So today we are going to begin from really very briefly.
Mhm.
Obviously, Musa Jeng, just for the purpose of this conversation, we know you're Gambian, and we also know that you're from Kaur, and you also went to Gambia High School. And you
You
know
nailed
and you're Fana as well,
it. Exactly.
so
You nailed
yes, and you've been living in Atlanta for a very, very long time.
it. Very,
Yes,
very long.
yes.
Yeah, but
So
yeah,
just
very
to just for the purpose of introduction, if you would just tell us
right.
a little bit about your so what sort of values you identified with when you were growing up, and who were some of the most inspirational figures in your life, because you talked a lot about what sort of education you had in the Gambia. There's a lot of information out there about that, but I haven't seen so much about, who were some of the most inspirational figures growing up in the Gambia, either in terms of your parents or either in terms of public figures who care a lot about social and community activism, which eventually would very characterize a lot of your life and journey. So if there are
Right.
figures, I would like us to begin there.
Wow. Wow. Very quickly, like you said, I was born in Kaur. And clearly, growing up in the 70s in Kaur was a totally different place. I mean, it was an economic hub, really. And Kaur was a place where people come from everywhere. People from Banjul, they will come there, work at the GPMB. I mean, those are the days that's why I always want to say Dandimayo. It was definitely the place to be. At the early age of 13, I left Kaur and, of course, like you said, went to Gambia High. And I always tease the guys from Saints that I went to the elite school. Gambia High was a totally different school. And again, fast forward, just before I get to your question, my dad died. Growing up at the age of 8, that's when I lost my dad. So I was basically brought up by my mom. My mom was an older person. And so it was my mom and my elder brothers. And so basically, when you talk about values, most of the things that I learned was from my mom, really. And the idea of hard work, the idea of education and taking things seriously, and the fact that I was fatherless and had to be brought up by my brothers, especially when I went to live in Banjul, Denali, James, Senegal. I mean, that's another place that had a lot of impact in my life. I mean, and I always talk about it sometimes on our program. I talk about Tally 8 and Spalding Cove, and these are the places that kind of mold me. I mean, if you talk about Kaur, you talk about James, Senegal, and then you talk about obviously Gambia High. I was an avid soccer player. I say that, but Samba sometimes doesn't
Zico.
believe.
Zico.
You have definitely done your homework. So I was into soccer big time. And we follow Senegalese soccer. Sumakoto Inyom Alaji Silla coach. Most people know him. So those are the people that I grew up with. Those are the people that I look up to. And I grew up in VUs where we drink attire and they just talk politics, opposition, anti the First Republic, I mean, that's what really shaped me for who I was. I was pretty much a reasonably good student. And after high school, fast forward, there was this man, a chemistry teacher called Adi Tunjai, Brother Adi. He passed away. He was a chemistry teacher at Muslim High, and he had these after-school studies that most of us getting ready for GCO levels were having classes with him. And this is someone who we kind of look up to. He was a different kind of teacher, not the usual teachers that are kind of aloof, serious. This guy was from America. He would smoke cigarette with us. He will talk about girls with us. And he was a very good chemistry teacher. Chemistry was a tough subject. Adiyatunjai Jai made it so easy for me, basically memorizing the periodic table just because of who he was. And because of him, I really wanted to come to the United States. I'm like, even though most of my friends, after graduating, people go to Cape Coast, Foro Bay, University of Ife, Nusuka. For me, it was about the US because of that guy, what he represented. He was kind of down to earth, easy to talk with, Wahindongo, and I like the way Angalemi, that kind of thing. We were all say like we call it at the time. So my focus was definitely, I did everything like I'm sure most of you guys, right to every college there was. And fortunately, in the early 80s, I made it to the US. And I've been here since then, on and off.
Yes.
Yes, on and off. So at some point, I did go back home because, like I said, my mom was not only an inspiration, was everything as far as I was concerned. So after graduating, at first, graduated with a bachelor's degree, emphasis in accounting. And I thought, well, I want to go back home. Because at that time, too, all you want to do is graduate, go home, and become a principal secretary, permanent secretary, and just become one of those guys. And, whether I was ready for that is a whole different ballgame. And it didn't take me long to realize. But again, I wanted to go home because my mom was getting old. So, and this was back in 1988. That was my first trying to go home. And I got there and I'm like, wow, I didn't know that after 4 years, Gambia has changed so much. I wasn't really ready to stay. So I turned around and I came back a month later. And again, fast forward, I went ahead and went to graduate school. And after I finished studies, I'm like, now I got to go home. So I went back home. My mom was definitely getting much older. And that was the best decision I ever made in my life. Because at least for 2-3 years, we were together, doing things together. And I was able to get married and witness all of that. And, that had a huge impact. And that's why I don't really regret going back home back in 1992. And fast forward, I went home. I was able to get a job at the stadium. And I got to know Gambia, how things were. I always say that going through that experience, if I knew what I know now, really, because I went and I took a task. There was this was at the stadium. They were having a renovation. It was back in 1992. That's why when most people say that they never renovated the stadium, that's not true. It was in the 83, it was renovated in 1992, 1993. The Chinese came and a position was advertised for someone to become a general manager. And everybody and their father were applied for this position. Because, they, how Gambia was at the time in the First Republic. Here there's renovation, there's a lot of money, they're pumping it in. I was young. I just applied. And I went through the interview. And like Gambia, just being Gambia, the job was already earmarked for someone. And the person got the job, but somehow, some of them, and there's always, in the Gambia, the people that were doing the interviewing, at least some of them I was able to convince me, look, I am the change that you guys need. I can come and do this, do that. And some of them really bought into it. So they created a position for me. All of a sudden, when they gave the job to someone else, I was disappointed. But I said, I was still young. I really didn't. And then I got a call from Buba Balde, the minister. He said, I don't know how it happened, but these guys are convinced that they need you to come and assist this person. And I'm like, wow. So that's how I got the job. Well, it didn't take long. Fast forward, a year after, bang, that happened. And everything changed. Absolutely everything changed. Now, for me, initially, I loved the coup. I supported the coup. It was the best thing because I've already been at the stadium for a year and I saw what I saw, that this system needs to change, really. Corruption and deals, and they were not really interested in making things, building up things, nothing like that. And I had a culture shock because I wasn't ready. I thought I would bring change. And this is an advice for anyone leaving the West and going home. No matter how much you think you know, no matter how much you think you are ready, just remember one thing: you're dealing in a totally different culture, and you have to make the necessary adjustment if you want to succeed. So you know it all, and that you're honest, and you're just gonna do the right thing, and you're just gonna make sure you are gonna fail miserably. You walk into a situation in a totally different culture, totally different from corporate America, where resources and computers and the controls in place. And then you think you can just bring that to this new environment, you will be disappointed. And that's what happened to me. I mean, I failed because I wasn't ready to deal with the realities and the culture. And that is why when Jammeh came, I embraced it. I'm like, wow, this is the best thing that could happen to this country. But apparently it didn't pan out that way. When other things start happening, November 11, people get killed, and then Usman Koro Sise, my classmate at Gambia High, when he got slaughtered, I'm like, oh my God.
That's a turning point for you?
Yes. I'm like, oh my God. Unbelievable. And Jammeh, I loved. When he speaks, I tune in. I'm like, this is the guy. I love everything that Jammeh was saying. Because things that he was saying was the reaffirmation of what I saw. The lack of accountability, the lack of probity, the corruption. It was there.
Yeah.
So I like what he was saying. And he was young and dynamic and all of that. Call me naive, gullible.
And because now that you basically your assessment of what you were seeing at the time, because you were involved in some level, especially at the stadium. I had Hasum Sisa yesterday, and we had such a phenomenal conversation, although the internet interrupted some parts of it too. And I'm bringing that up specifically to make the point that I think for young people like us, I was born in 1994, so I'm a baby still. I'm only 31 years old. And so, yes, we read the historical record of what, including Jawara's book. I've had the opportunity to read it and to assess a first-hand account of what he himself had to say. And then you read, for example, counter arguments from other side where people delineate just how pervasive corruption is, including what you're mentioning. And what the prominent historian said is that all of those allegations are not things that I think most people who make that, are somewhat, they don't have a very nuanced understanding what was happening. Not to take any side, but I think I'm interested to understand, really, was there as serious corruption as a lot of people alleged to be existing, or do you think this is more about people just trying to indict the Jara government from your vantage position?
You gotta put it in perspective.
Yeah.
Clearly, now obviously, when you compare the First Republic and the Second Republic, but if you're just going to judge them at that time with what I was seeing, being an insider, let's put it this way. When you go to any of those public enterprises, these were handpicked people that were well connected to be board of directors. So those are the people running the institutions. Take the stadium, for instance. Most of the people were handpicked by, Buba Bande, the minister. Obviously, you don't want to say things about someone who already passed, but that's just how the game was played. Everybody want to make sure that you have your own people in places.
So nepotism and cronyism was pervasive.
Yes, and then they will handpick a general manager who would dance to their tune. Do the things. Like I said, when I came to the stadium, there was a renovation that was going on by the Chinese, you see, and I could see the corruption. I could see some of the things that were taken and given to people that were well connected in terms of building materials and things like that. There was no accountability. And most of the people that were working there, the stadium was just there as to create employment for people who were well connected. It wasn't a viable entity. With my enthusiasm, and I wanted to come in and I thought I knew it all, build it up, make it viable, And but I kept running into, and the general manager was there, never know, those kind of things. And so that is now you got to understand that Gambia is an extremely poor country.
Yeah.
There were expectations. People were thinking that the ministers were all loaded. They were not, or the permanent secretaries. But I can assure you that, deals were being cut, things were getting done, and the inefficiencies were all over the place because of that. The structural corruption that is here today, it was there. Okay. Don't be fooled one bit. It hasn't changed much. The structural corruption that I'm talking about, that was there during the First Republic, that's what we are seeing now. Now, Jawara was a totally different leader.
Yeah.
And down the line, I have gotten to know him very closely, and someone that I really have high regards and respect.
Mhm.
I mean, I always do say that he came to the presidency at the wrong time, you see. But corruption, yes. The structures, yes. The culture of corruption was there, no doubt about that. Now, some of the things were being exaggerated, because you got to understand, when Jammeh came, he exploited that because people believed it. So it wasn't like,
Propagandized it.
no.
Yeah.
I mean, it was there. I mean, definitely, it was really there. The corruption was there.
So
Was it bad?
no,
You know,
I'm also curious. Understandably, by this time you're pretty young, and
yeah, I
the
was.
sentiments that you had is also, in some ways, representative of the sentiment of a lot of people when the junta came and took over power from Jawara. In terms
Mhm.
of, while the whole academic discussion of whether pervasive corruption and inept bad governance and all these things justify a military to step up to take over power from a
Right.
democratically elected leader. And so I'm curious to know, um, over the years, I'm sure, what has your opinion of a military takeover has become, if any?
Oh, totally, totally. I do not subscribe to anything of that sort. I mean, I am one person. Bad as a government is, I do believe that we should do whatever it takes, consolidating democracy and going through it the right way. And over time, even when we were really into the activism, I mean, with the Sambas and the bankers, and this is one thing that differentiates me from some of them.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, even activism and protest are more of a compromise and deal making and coalition and believe in things that you
Diplomacy.
defeat a government. I mean, and I really learned it from, I could say, the 1994, where I thought that removing a coup d'etat, Jawara, I mean, it's like a, it's one way of bringing about change. And I was young and naive, call it that. It didn't take me long. But again, when it didn't work out for me, I just packed up myself in 1994, 1996, and said, I'm out of here. And that's when I came back to the US. So and I've been here since
So
1996.
that's a long time. And you mentioned two very prominent names very briefly, Banka and also Coach Pasamba. And
Right,
anybody who knows Musa can identify you with those two names. And I know all of them at some point, or maybe until now. I know Banka has returned to Gambia at some point. I don't know if it is still there.
right, right,
Yeah. So I do want to highlight a little bit of that brotherhood, that
right,
triangular brotherhood, and maybe there is more. I'm sure there is more.
right,
The
right,
significance of that in terms of all of you collectively having a shared value in being
right.
committed to not only where you are and your careers abroad, but also issues about home. And this is not just you. I've read interactions with you guys and Ablai Sens, the Alaji Barrows, the
Exactly,
lots of other Gambians on social media when social media was not even fashionable. So you guys were there. But if you would
exactly.
talk very briefly about the significance of that relationship, how you guys come to make the decision among yourselves to make it a point of your life's commitment to see Gambia beyond everything else for many, many years, and how has that really strengthened, if any, maybe even affected your relationships among each other, or maybe strengthening it. But if you would talk about that very briefly.
Yeah, getting to know those two guys, more accidental more than anything else. Like I said, came
Wow.
back in 1996,
Mhm.
and I didn't know Pasamba, I didn't know Banka, and came back to Atlanta, and we were all on the, like I said, totally disappointed with Jammeh, and thought that I will do whatever it takes to be part of something that would try to bring down the Jammeh government at that time. All we had was Gambia L. So there was a lot of writings. That's how you get to meet people, know people. The Dr. Sens, you said, Alaji Paro,
Mhm.
Samba, Banka, the back and forth, the infighting.
Mhm.
So that's how I get to know them. For Banka, it was a little bit different because he was living here in Atlanta with me.
Mhm.
And we had other things to do. And this is where the community activism come in.
Mhm.
It was in the early 90s, because when I came to Atlanta, Lana was basically the largest concentration of Gambians in the United States. Now that you're talking about Seattle, but Atlanta was the place, and most Gambians live in Atlanta. And we had this the July 4th. Everybody talks about it, and we always used to say that it was the second largest Gambian event, other than the independence in the Gambia. The Gambians were coming from everywhere. And when I came to Atlanta and I was part of the organization, it was organization in Dongo, people that really know each other, mainly from the greater Banjul area. People that went to Gambia High and since they know each other. I mean, they're here in the US for college and things like that. So they form associations, soccer teams. And of course, that's how the July 4th came about. And every July, there's this reunion and everybody comes to Atlanta. So when we came, I said, man, we got to make something out of this. Because it's a bigger community. This thing is nothing more than a club of not a whole lot of Gambians were part of it. And Banka and I and some other folks thought that it was important for us to, because that's how I even reached out to Banka. Because like I said, it was just few of us, we know each other, grew up from the greater Banjul area, and then we formed there's this Gambia reunion organization that we thought it needed to change. We needed to expand it. We needed to bring in the other communities. The Mandinka community was growing up. They were coming to Atlanta at a smaller scale, and they were having their own thing on the sides. I mean, they didn't see themselves in this reunion because they were not recruited or anything like that. Like I said, if you club loan.
Wow.
We made the bold decision that, and there were resistance, that there needs to be inclusiveness. Reach out to the community. Gambia is a country of 1.5 million at that time. There is no way in hell you can build a successful organization at the community level without every Gambian to be part of it. And the only way you can do that is to have a buy-in. And there was a resistance, and we revolutionized that. We fight because the system didn't want to change. You know how it is sometimes.
Yes.
People thought life for being discriminated can. We're just doing what we're doing, and it's successful. We're fine. We're saying, look, if this thing is going to be taken to the next level, everyone has to have a buy-in. And that's how I get to know Banka very well. And we build relationship and trust. I mean, I remember when Banka had his christening ceremony. Get this. This is the biggest surprise of my life. He was my friend. I mean, we debate, we argue at the organizational level. We fight because Banka, you know how he is. But we saw things the same way. Banka wants change. He wants total overhaul, break China. And that's what I wanted. Coming back to his christening, I mean, he has this christening, and I was sitting there with all the community. And so, today, they said they went and tell the Imam. And when they said Musa Jeng, I could not believe it. It was the shock of my life because Banka had other relationships much closer than mine. Absolutely. So you're talking for somebody to name your child after you, somebody who doesn't really, I mean, Banka knew me maybe 3-4 years, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, people that roommates live for years, and brothers and uncles. So to just pick me out of nowhere, it was unbelievable. So that's how I got to know Banka. For Samba, it was the activism. It was the protest. Because at that time, during the Gambia L days, back and forth. But then for us to fight Jammeh, there were other steps that needed to be taken. That was either protest at the CNN building or protest in Washington and things like that. And I can guarantee you, Ibrahima, at that time, the struggle was very lonely. But you would know everyone who was part of the struggle, who was willing to drive from here to Washington for a protest, from here to New York for a protest. Banka Manneh is one person. Jaral Nako, he will rent a car and he will go around town in Atlanta picking up people.
Wow.
I invested in this. It was lonely. When nobody would go, I still remember driving with Banka from Atlanta to Chicago for a Labor Day weekend and symposium, and with Baba Gale Jallo was there. It was a lonely struggle. So the few people that were out there, you get to know them.
Yeah.
We worked together. We needed each other. And that's how I mean, philosophically, we have our disagreements, and I'm sure people will see it on the show.
Yes.
Always, before the people buy it. We all, every morning when I commute to work, I'm on the phone with Samba and Banka. And all we're doing is arguing. All we're doing is arguing and agreeing to disagree. Banka will call me. I remember one time he calls me Chemical Ali, that I am that I'm ruthless. I don't have soul. That I am, but again, we were fighting the same fight. And so we're going to talk about NADD. And it was during these interactions with the Banka Mannes, the Sambas, and a whole lot of other Karamba Toure, so Edikan. I mean, there were few people, whether it's in Atlanta or Washington or New York, we all knew each other. And again, as far as Banka is Samba, Banka and Samba, that's how I get to know them. Their heart is in the right place. These people are not just doing this because that is why I get very angry when people go after Banka, especially because they don't know where this guy has gone. They have no idea or no clue what he has done and what the struggle to fight Jammeh has done to him. Nobody knows what this guy has sacrificed. Banka is the smartest guy that I know. I swear to God. Very smart. He had a nice corporate job. Banka was doing fine. He had a business. He didn't need the struggle. Banka got into this. Banka was much more committed. If Banka buga muna dem, man nyeme nyuma fa dem.
Wow.
Seriously. That is why when the December 30th happened, Banka, we are so close. Banka has never mentioned that to me. You know what he said? Because he said, that's not my thing. Man, that's not my thing. That's not how I'm wired. That is why he didn't even get me involved. Banka gave it all his life. All of it. Very determined. When Banka came out of prison, Ibrahim, Banka went to prison maybe weighing 225, 250 pounds. When Banka was released at a halfway house, and I walked in and I saw Banka, I swear to the Holy Quran. He's a totally different individual. Banka did not even weigh 120 pounds.
Wow.
When I looked at him, I'm like, Banka, what the hell? You know what he told me?
No.
Like, bro, I exercise. It's like, no. I'm going to show you some of these things. There's a lot to learn from the prisons. That's what he told me. 250 pounds, 120. He was a skeleton. I was scared. I thought this guy was going to die. A lot of things were in my head. Did Banka get HIV or something? I was scared. This is a guy who gave it all, Ibrahim. And that is why when people jump into conclusion, oh, now you are, with the job that you were doing, Banka doesn't even own that job. He was working for this sand mining, and they thought this environmental. He doesn't even work there anymore. Again, people just make assumptions and take a loan need from they could. But these are folks that have strong character. Samba, I always say, if he were even president, that guy would protest against himself. That's who he is. I'm telling you. I mean, these people are not in it for some quick job or, notoriety or anything of that sort. Their heart is in the right place. They thought that Jammeh needed to be removed, and they did everything possible. I'm telling you.
Yeah, and I think that is very conspicuous too. I think if anyone who is very sincere and want to be objective in terms of how you view some of you and the commitment, literally, you made this your life's commitment. You could have conveniently, like most people, just be focusing on your business and your careers in the United States and just be sending money to your family, as most people do, which there is nothing wrong with.
Mhm.
But the commitment to the principles of social justice and equality, and
Exactly.
to do that for such a long period of time at the expense of financial rewards, at the expense of relationships, at the expense of sometimes your family, I think is something that is admirable. And all of you are very strong-willed. I don't know if the young generation like ours are able to withstand the test of what you guys have really overcome or overcame,
Mhm.
and I hope that there is so much lesson for all of us to learn from, especially all of us engaged in this line of work. But Musa, we're going to move on, and I'm really like I said, for the purpose of what is happening right now as we head to 2026 presidential
Yeah.
elections in December, I thought it
Mhm.
would be absolutely necessary to spend some time to delve into the 2006 National Alliance for Democracy and Development, otherwise
Exactly.
referred to as NADD,
Exactly.
and which you're involved in as chairperson
Mhm.
through the Safe Democracy Project in the Gambia. Then,
Right.
and there are reports about you online, including interviews of what happened. And
Exactly.
so I'm really interested in talking to us
Mhm.
on the synopsis or the genesis of what really went on. How did that come about?
Right.
And what were some of the failures, if any, that
Yeah.
led to the fragmentation of what ended up having two coalitions to contest against former President Jammeh in those days in 2006. So I'm really interested in all of it. So take your time and let's
Yeah.
really have a conversation about. I may interject here and there,
No, no, no,
if,
no. Good.
but yeah,
Not
please.
like I told you. I'm sure. I mean, you're gonna get me in trouble
I hope
because most
not.
people don't want to revisit NAD because it's such a controversial enterprise. But I think that it is so important,
It is.
especially looking at what we are faced with in 2026. Because what I'm hearing now, with all the rhetoric, those were the same rhetoric that we were hearing back in 2004, 2005. No difference. Not. How did it come about? You remember you mentioned we had Gambia L, platform that every Gambians, we go there and we fight.
Mhm.
We accuse each other of being tribalist and all of that, you name it. That is nothing new. Gambia L was the place. That was the place that people agree to disagree. Fast forward 2001, presidential election. PPP was unbanned. Okay, because 1996 they were banned.
Mhm.
So that's how UDP came about. NCP was banned, UDP was banned. And very quickly, they said they needed someone who cannot be associated with the PPP and at the same time, well respected in the community, and let them form something different as a way of, the APRC, a countermeasure against the APRC. They went and get Mr. Dabo. Mr. Dabo was the most attractive candidate at that time. He was well known, a veteran lawyer. Highly respected, overwhelming in the community. And at the same time, people saw him as a success story. Amna Hali's resources. People saw that. And they also knew that he cannot be associated with the PPP. So that's why the man was handpicked. It was the most electable person to lead the UDP. And that's how it came about. They contested the 2001 election. 1996. He was unsuccessful. In 2001, they unbanned the PPP.
Mhm.
So the PPP threw their support behind Mr. Dabo in a coalition. If you remember, there was a coalition talks that they had at the YMCA. The Sirif Mustafa Diba was there as NCP, and he walked in there saying that for the past 2, 3, 4, 5 election cycle, he was the main opposition leader and he should be the flag bearer. Landing Jallow Sonko, OJ, they're like, none of that. They threw their support behind Mr. Thabo, that he is the guy that could easily defeat the APRC. And most Gambians at the time believed that. I mean, he ran most people thought that he was going to win in 1996. I'm going to Gayanginyo, Army, and people were, and he was able to win. In 2001, the PPP threw their support behind Mr. Thabo and the UDP. And they came close, 32%. 32, something like that. We all got disappointed. Remember, at that time, we were not very involved in terms of being either facilitators or leaders of anything like that. We were behind the scenes just raising money. I remember Keba Jallo coming to my house. We gave $100, $200. He was the one raising money for the PPP, UDP alliance. So that's how involved we were. We were not very involved at all. We thought 2001, definitely, UDP was going to win. And it didn't happen. So we're like, wow, now we got to get our hands dirty. The only way that this man is going to be defeated would be a comprehensive coalition of all parties. Doi did not even attend the coalition talks at the YMCA where Sirif Diba was, and Sirif Diba walked away. So what you had was a PPP, UDP coalition of some sort. And it was not successful. So we said our goal should be to work on a comprehensive where all the parties are together and we take the fight to this guy. That's the only way to do it. It was first peddled by Dr. Sen. He said, what we need to do is we're going to work for 5 years to 2006. Let's raise the funds. So they started out by saying, Kuneka pay $25 every month, something like that, to raise the money. That was the first idea. Then we decided, what? Maybe what we need to do is to bring the opposition parties to the diaspora. Bring them in one room, all of them. That would be one way of at least creating the environment. Banka and I told you, Ajera was the most viable organization in the diaspora. Everybody comes to the July 4th. We were it when I say that Samba get all jealous. So we said, what? We need to hijack the July 4th and use it and bring the opposition parties. But mind you, Ajera was apolitical. It was an association community organization. There were people who supported APRC. So we had to maneuver. We said, what? I remember the day that we went to the organization and said, if we want to take the July 4th to the next level, people that are coming here, they play soccer, they party. But what we are saying is we want to bring in the politicians and not partisan. We're going to bring everybody, even including the APRC. We're going to invite them. We call it Meet the Diaspora Summit. All of them would come. And this is a way of we call it linkages, building nexus between the diaspora and back home. Some of them were very suspicious because they know of our activism against Jammeh. But we were able to do the politicking and get the necessary votes to pass it. The ambassador at that time was Esa Bokarsi. He was APRC. He was supposed to be the keynote speaker. There was a parallel arrangement that was going on that after the Diaspora Summit, we would have another meeting, which happened at the Moore House. Every letter that was sent to every leader, Ibrahima, I wrote it. So I'm not telling you something that I hear say or anything like that. Or I'm not even trying to elevate myself. I'm just saying that I witnessed it because my been the letters you. They approved it. We send it to each and every leader. Omar Amadou Jallo, Wajwara Ndam, Alaji Usenu Dabo, Ahmad Ba, and Omar Amadou Jallo, and Halifa Saleh. We invited them, frame it, and then Esa Bokarsi. When the APRC folks realized, at least people in the diaspora called them, hey, don't go to that. This Musa Jeng and Banka Manneh, they're up to no good. these people are opposition big time. They call Essa, Bokasi, talk him out of it. And that's what we actually wanted. Essa never showed up. We had the Diaspora Summit. Halifa was there. UDP was represented by Yaya Jallo. Ndam was just newly formed, represented by Osmenga. And then you have Globa, represented Ahmad Ba. At that Diaspora Summit, that's where Omar Amadou Jallo selected Halifa Sallah. After they all make their presentations, you know, let Halifa be the coordinator to look into the idea of forming a coalition. The next day, like I said, there was a parallel, arrangement that was handled by Keba Foon, the same Keba Foon working on this coalition for system change. He's been at it for a while. So this is what sometimes people go after him. I can tell you, his heart is in the right place. He's been doing this for a long time. Him and Joe Samba, we all went to Morehouse the next day. That's how the NADD concept, for the first time, we talked about it. They said when they go back, they will continue the work. We will organize ourselves. Because you have to remember, we were also fighting. There was people that are sympathetic to DOI, some in PPP. The same old situation. There's no difference. So we decided we need to form ourselves. We need to organize ourselves. And that's how they Save the Gambia Democracy Project. Of course, we went through phases until it became Save the Gambia Democracy Project. And I was the Secretary General at some point. Keba stepped down. I became the chairperson before the 2006. And this is, you see, that position, that's what changed my politics. When I became the chairperson, there were people who were DOI sympathizers. There were people who were PPP. There were people who were UDP. Nyom Karamba Toure, Nyom Ibrahim Diba, you name it. We will meet every Sunday, conference calls. The partisanship would always come up. For somebody like me, I was like, at one time they say, man boy Ojela. At one time they said, oh, I'm DOI. At one time they said, in fact, I am even UDP. And the reason why that happened, when we formed Save the Gambia Democracy Project, and we already talked them into, and they went back home, and we were all walking into trying to create a comprehensive coalition. We look at, the UDP position has always been very clear. In 2001, we have more votes than any other party. It makes perfect sense. You're hearing it today. If you want to have a coalition, that's how it's done all over the world. It has to be a party-led. That was the UDP position. Of course, you have the Halifa's position saying that they're only interested in program coalition. In other words, a coalition driven by a program, policies.
I think he also described it as a sovereign equality. From some of the emails that I've captured, he described it as not a party to, as Essa would say, to anoint, but all parties to operate on a sovereign equality level, which means that even though you have the highest number of votes or percentage of votes in the election, it shouldn't matter. And he gave the example of United Nations where all countries are equal. And so some of the criticisms that he got from that were also people were telling him, well, that's in the face of it, but in reality, we know all countries are not equal in the United Nations in terms of their sovereign equality. Yes, but go ahead. Sorry for going on a tangent for a little bit. Yes.
That's what we were dealing with. The same thing. It's absolutely no difference. The argument, the counter argument, But for me, when I looked at it, we were facilitators. We were having our meetings. I put together a proposal. Saying, you know what? The most important thing is to get rid of this man. And the way I'm looking at it, I don't see no way, no how that we can have a coalition without UDP leading it. I couldn't see it. I could see the compromises here and there, But if there is one thing that they are not going to waver, is to lead it at that time. So I put together a nice proposal. I remember when I presented it, they all went after me like nobody's business. No, we're not going to do this. I mean, I know that they were saying a Karamba because I was very close to Karamba. I like Karamba's kind of politics. He's civil, smart, and he's engaging, and he did not use me. We were trying to find a way of making sure that it happened. How could we make sure that this coalition would happen? And let's look at the individuals. And I'm going to tell you what led to the disintegration. Fast forward, everything went fine. They signed a memorandum of understanding. Even though UDP was saying a party-led, at some point, they cave in. At some point, they cave in. Khalifa was the coordinator.
I don't mean to cut you short, but I think they signed the MOU.
They did.
Yes.
So that's what I mean by they cave in, meaning they signed the MOU, and in the MOU, the most important thing was these two things. First, and this was one of the things that frustrated us, because they said that they signed an MOU, all right? It was not going to be a party-led. It was going to be done under another different vessel. And if you listen to me now, I'm even going back to NADD. When I proposed a comprehensive, I'm taking it from NADD because I know this was something that UDP was willing to go with. And I still believe they will be if it comes down to it. They signed the MOU. It has to be done on a separate vessel called NADD. And the person who is elected as the leader, as the flag bearer, will only serve for one term of 5 years. That's what was in NADD. I mean, 2006 MOU is not that different from 2016. The only difference was how do you select the flag bearer? In NADD, the flag bearer was to be selected through consensus. They will all sit down and go through the motions. But this was one issue that they never wanted to touch. They did everything. They signed the MOU at the Palm Grove. We spent money. We brought them to the United States, to Europe. They traveled all over the place selling NADD. But we always knew the big elephant in the room, unless and until it's dealt with head on, who is going to lead it? This could be the problem. At some point, there was the registration of NADD. This was a critical point. Khalifa Saleh knew that, and I know UDP also knew that at the end of the day, let's just go along and see how this thing is going to play out. When they registered NADD, because Khalifa obviously did not want to do it under a UDP or any other party for that matter. They wanted to do it under an independent entity, separate from the individual parties. And NADD was supposed to be the merger. Parties coming in and merge into NADD. They register it. APRC went to the Supreme Court, basically saying, because all of them, they had to resign from their individual parties to become executives of NADD, including Alaji Usenu, including Mr. Salah, and including Ahmad Ba.
But to that point, before you continue, is it true that Dabo protested to the team that, by virtue of his experience as a lawyer, that they should not, in fact, register to get into the elections as NADD, that they should just wing it and just move with it as a coalition instead?
There are two versions.
Okay.
And I have no doubt that, remember I said, Alaji Usenu being a lawyer, he always knew that, look, at the end of the day, remember, they contested 3-4 by-elections under NADD, but under their parties. You know what I mean? Like when Khalifa, when they, okay, slow down. Usenu did say, he made the argument, his version, he did tell them that, don't register it. But when they went to court, check this, the IEC and the opposition, they were on the same They were on the same page saying that you can register a merger. Again, I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
Mr. Dabo's argument was, you cannot. Now, you can register NADD, but they can register NADD. There's nothing wrong with registering NADD. The only problem was some of the, let's say, if they had used other members within the opposition parties, excluding the ones that were National Assembly members, it wouldn't make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason why it made a difference was Halifa was a National Assembly member for Serekunda, and then Kemeseng, and then you had, I think, Ahmad Ba. So the fact that they resigned from they could have used other party members to be executive of NADD instead of them, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But after doing that, the idea was it was a merger, and they were registering a merger. That's their argument. And there were accusations, fairly or unfairly, that Mr. Dabo was the lawyer who went to court, and they didn't think that he enthusiastically defended that position. Again, like I said, the politics of it. Mr. Dabo is saying, I told you, if you guys register NADD, it's going to fall on his face because you cannot do that. And they're saying, well, we were registering a merger, and then you being the lawyer, you did not really make the argument. You can pick. But that was the politicization of it. But fast forward. NADD was not the register. They ended up losing their seats. But they came together in a by-election, still on the NADD, and they were able to defeat Jammeh.
APRC, yeah.
APRC. The only person that ended up losing was Ahmad Ba. And that was very unfortunate. But let me tell you the approaches of each and every one of these party members and why NADD disintegrated. I'm going to start with Wajwara Dam. Wa was part of the arrangement. Wa was never committed to the coalition of NADD. Wa's focus was anybody but Usainu.
So because they had a beef, I heard that they've always had a very tough relationship.
In 2001, and this he got expelled from the party. So for him, he was using the Ndam vehicle to deny Mr. Dabo. So with all those meetings, we would call different, we'll talk to them, behind the scenes, talk to Wa, and he's always on UDP's case.
He's very strong-willed.
So he was not. So somebody like him, I can tell you that Wa, his focus was to deny Mr. Dabo the leadership, no matter what. You have the UDP. From day one, they were not emotionally invested into NADD. They went along because they said, after losing 2001, coming together, maybe the best, why not? Let's try it. As long as we lead, that was the bottom line. As long as Mr. Dabo is the leader, they were willing to give it a chance. Were they emotionally invested into NADD as a coalition? Personally, I don't believe it. But did they make the necessary sacrifices? Because they started out as a party-led. They walked away from that. They signed an MOU. So you cannot, I'm just telling you my own personal opinion, But they played along. But knowing fully well that at the end of the day, at least we will lead it. And seeing what happened in 2016, the same thing could have happened very easily. If Mr. Dabo was the candidate and they ended up winning, I could see them coming out and saying, look, the majority of the people that voted for their UDP voters. I could see it. Would they walk away from the MOU, seeing what happened in 2016? I think they would have. Then you have Halifa. Halifa was gung-ho about making sure that let's have a coalition. It cannot be done under any other party. It has to be done this way. And he was the one who put it together, really. Now, there were technical teams here and there, but at the end of the day, everything Halifa wanted was in NADD, everything, the MOU that was signed, most of it was there, all of it. Was Khalifa interested in being a candidate?